Hello. Okay, so Internet Rules is busy, so I'm going to continue the tree without him. First, very briefly, Gigahurt made a tree about one of my blog posts. So it's big. I haven't read it yet, but it looks kind of legit. Okay, so start by moving these further out of the way. There. These ones out of the way. Okay. Okay, so we just did this gigahertz material down here, which is, let's see. Firm language can lead to conflict. Okay, that's like a heading somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so I finished this post. So now it's my post and then one more from Gigahertz. Okay, so I amplified this thing. In isolation, these things don't matter, but they add up. Something like that. Here it is, this one. Okay. Staying on a conversation is often a late indicator. Yeah. I'll just use that as a quote. Wait, if I hit enter from here, nope. What if I hit tab? Can I drag it over? Can I get red? No. Okay, whatever. Quote marks. Details omitted from tree. Alright, there we go. I think I can delete that. Maybe he responds to it. I haven't actually read his response. Oh yeah, he totally responds to this part, so I might need more nodes. So that... Okay, well I will add those nodes if I need them when I'm doing his response. I think social dynamics don't require a third party. Alright, that goes somewhere. Let's see. Here we go. This is where it goes. Okay. I'll just make this one node. I think it's a small enough point. I'll just merge this stuff into one quote. Oh, it is sequential anyways. I shouldn't have a period at the end though. I'll just delete that. There we go. 3 and border change. Okay. Okay, so here's like a main point. That's why it's all the whole paragraph's in italics. Okay. So I need to figure out where to put that. So maybe over here somewhere? Oh no, this was firm language leads to conflict. I could just respond to this one, the tips thing. Problem A, tips, firm language. So this one's related to people feeling threatened. That's a decent place to put it. Not sure yet. I'm gonna read a bit more. So I'm not responding to this specific thing anymore. I have a horizontal rule here. Right, I did the third party thing. Okay, and then so I'm commenting more on my italic stuff. Why? One reason is people try to hide weakness. They want to look smart, but what if they aren't? How do you talk to them? They don't want to speak. They want you to speak or reveal the truth. Oh yeah, I remember this. I think there's a misunderstanding about this because I haven't read Gigahurt's reply yet, but I read a little bit of it, and I remember this came up, and I was gonna explain it more. So I'll probably need to put stuff about this in the tree. Error correction, and then more interested in gaining status than figuring out what's true. Okay, I need to figure out where to put all this stuff. I could just put it under this, my own node. Put it here. Person I uses language that makes B seem inferior to C. Tips to avoid threats. I think I'll put it under my own node. Wait, why is it black? I'm under a red node. But here I was under a black node and I was getting black. Oh, now it gets red. I don't understand. Okay, I'm just gonna put my stuff over here. I can move it later if I need to. Okay, let's put this whole thing. Or maybe I should split it into 2 nodes. Yeah, I'll split it. Oh, okay. So reason is people try to hide weakness, etc. Okay. Okay, when I say one attempt to solve this problem, which problem do I mean? Do I mean this problem, or this problem, or maybe this problem? What's the parent? So not taking sides prevents outcomes where they lose. So I think it's chaining at the end. Yeah. Okay. People are body plus ideas. I'll say physical body. So it's pure. Okay. I'll just quote that one. I think that represents my case decently. And then I'll come back and add more if necessary when gigahurt replies to it. Okay, this is another point. Social dynamics can ruin discussions because people focus on it. Not on truth. Okay. Social world basically uses its own rules of evidence. Yeah, okay, and I want that one as well. People are so used to thinking in a social way that they don't think in a rationalist or scientific way. This is why they have so much trouble being literal. Literal means non-social. People don't want to change this because their goal is to gain social status. Okay, that's important. Oh, when I say this, what I mean is not the rules of society, I mean their actions. I'll just paraphrase. Okay. People want to use social rules of evidence because social status is their goal. Not change to rationality. Social rules of evidence argument, not switch to rationality because social status is their goal. They're dishonest about this, and widespread dishonesty is a major discussion problem, and also I linked this thing. Okay. Yeah. Some notes on social dynamics. Okay. Tag these. I don't really agree that they're extra sensitive. Like, if you care about social status and someone attacks your social status one time, it makes sense to take that seriously or respond or whatever. like, it's not an overreaction to react when there's one problem. You don't need a pattern of problems before you do problem solving. If you value the thing that there's a problem with, and you have enough information to understand the problem reasonably well, then you can do something about it, or react to it, or whatever. So, like, I don't blame them for that in the context of what kind of person they are, what their goals and values are, etc. I think in context it makes sense. And like when you say extra sensitive, you're suggesting that they're thin-skinned, and so they could just like brush it off and that would work better. But I think it's like a real problem, and just ignoring it isn't going to address it. You can usually tell pretty fast what kind of person you're dealing with and how they're treating you, and like decide that's a problem for you, or that they're doing things you view as attacks or something. I don't think it makes sense to wait until they do it like 5 times before you take it seriously. Like, there can be ambiguity at the beginning, but even when it's ambiguous, you can say there might be a problem here and do something about it, rather than just ignoring it. Or sometimes what they do is they start using behind the scenes strategies. They figure there's probably a problem, so they'll do some extra defensive strategies right away without like raising the problem or talking about it explicitly, but they're still taking some action to deal with it because they think that the chance there's a problem is high enough that it's worth some effort. And I think people are very sensitive to social status. Audiences are paying very close attention to these things. So I don't think it's an overreaction when people react to small, what seems, from some perspective, it looks sort of like a small affront or a small power play or something. But I think in our culture, people are very highly attuned to those things and like monitoring them with high precision. So I think it's like a normal sensitivity, even if it seems a little unintuitive to uh, rationalists who try to look at the world a different way. I don't know if I'm going to write stuff about this. For one thing, it's kind of tangential. Yeah, there are a bunch of ways you can get evidence about this. Sometimes people admit it later, sometimes quite specifically. They'll admit, I was mad earlier when you said X. I'm still mad, that's what's going on. Like, I've gotten that from people. But then a more common version is they make a bitter comment about X, showing that they remembered it and it's still on their mind. So they're not trying to tell you that they've been mad about X the whole time, but their communication reveals that they're still thinking about X and they're still trying to fight you about it, and so on, and that's pretty common. Another thing that happens is I say to people, you seem upset or mad or whatever, and they deny it, and then things go on a bit, and then at some point they realize that they are mad, and then they say, okay, you were right. I was mad at the time you said it, not just like currently. So those kinds of things give evidence. And just in general, you come up with a model of what's going on, and then you watch what they do and whether it fits it. So if you think someone is tilted over X, if you think that might be going on, you can watch for things like, does the quality of their messages go down? That's a common thing that happens when they're tilted. Or put a different way, if you see their message quality go down, you can try to come up with an explanation. Like, there has to be some sort of cause there. And so you can brainstorm what are the possible causes, and you can have they were offended by X on that list and have a bit of a debate about the causes, and that one might win. Which, of course, that can be pretty unreliable in a single case, but if you look at many, many cases, you got better feedback. It's not just random noise anymore. Of course, you could make systematic errors in your analysis, but that's a problem with more or less anything. So, yeah, the evidence for this stuff is like not super convenient. There are certainly things where it's easier to get evidence, but you can get evidence about this stuff. Yes, that's pretty common. I agree with that. Oh, no, that I have tried a lot of times. They tend not to like it. I haven't had good results with calling them out and them thanking me and reforming. There are certainly advantages to calling them out. Sometimes it leads to interesting discussions with other members of the audience about the conversation. And sometimes it leads to feedback on whether my analysis of the situation is correct. Because if I call them out, they have the opportunity, if I'm wrong, to point out some counter argument or some important fact or something that contradicts my narrative. And if their only rebuttal is, totally unconvincing, transparently wrong, etc., then that is evidence that they do not have counter evidence to what I'm saying, so it means something. Like, if they had some good points to use back to me, they'd probably use those. Not necessarily, but in general. You need something, like some sort of shared value or common ground. It doesn't have to be a lot, if you're willing to start basic. I think a lot of the times discussions get stuck because there's enough common ground to have a discussion, but one of the people doesn't want to go back to basics. They don't want to deal with that much of an inferential distance gap and learn to understand someone who isn't from like a close cousin in their subculture. Like, they're used to dealing with people who are similar enough to them that they can make a lot of assumptions and never really learn how to communicate or think properly because they just assume what other people mean and other people assume what they mean, and no one's communicating properly. But because everyone's like similar enough, this is all obscured and they don't notice that there's like a lot less communication happening than they think there is. So anyways, if you deal with people like that, which is very, very common, then it's a large culture shock for them to have to speak plainly and figure out how to actually communicate things instead of having people guess what you meant. Like, there's always some guesswork, but you can like explain a lot or just explain a few hints, and if you're stereotypical enough and the other person knows the stereotypes, then you barely have to communicate for them to know what you mean. And also you can have low standards, so even if they get it wrong, you just sort of go with it anyways. That's pretty common too. Anyways, when people are used to that, it's a huge culture shock to try to actually say what they mean and be literal and think through what are all their assumptions, because you can't communicate with someone who has a different background context unless you figure out what are a bunch of my assumptions that this person doesn't share, and then I'll have to actually say those. So most people don't want to do that kind of project. So like the typical problem is not that they're incapable. Like I think there's enough, they know English, they know arithmetic, they have some ideas about rationality and truth, like some very basic concept of it, some introductory stuff. And like I think that's enough that you could build on it if people wanted to. The problem is they don't want to. And they think it would lower their social status to look like a beginner and go through that kind of thing. Yeah, I like the inferential distance articles from Less Wrong, by the way, which are related to this problem. But I've had very little success bringing that kind of thing up. In fact, in my first post on Less Wrong, when I came back recently, I said that I think we'll have a big inferential distance gap here. And the first comment response I got said, they started arguing with me a bit, and then they said, also, this isn't an inferential distance gap, meaning sort of like you're just wrong, or, which is kind of a silly thing to say. Like, they don't know much about me and my perspective, and then when I tell them there's a inferential distance gap, and they think there isn't, it's a little bit like I say I disagree with them, and they say, no, we don't disagree. It's like, if someone's saying they disagree with you, they probably usually are right. There are exceptions, but it's a hard thing to argue with someone who's saying, we agree, there's no problem here. If one person thinks there's a problem, generally there's a problem. Because, like, either there's a problem or they're misunderstanding something, which is a problem. Anyway, so I said there's an inferential distance gap, and the guy's response was more or less, from my context, from my perspective, on my premises, there's something else going on here. It looks this other way to me. And I'm like, yeah, of course it does, because we have an inferential distance gap. So the thing it looks like to you is not what it looks like to me. That's what I was telling you would happen. So of course it looks like something bad to you. You're looking at it in a totally different way than I intended it. The other thing is, I've gotten like initial agreement to try to deal with an inferential distance gap with people. But what happens next doesn't work because so what you have to do is basically exponentially back off to find common ground. It's like binary search. And the thing they want to do is like linearly back off like a couple steps at a time. And so like the discussion starts at 1,000,000, common ground is at 100, and they want to back off like 20 at a time. And I want to back off by like more than half because we have a long ways to go. And the thing is, once I start communicating that to them, how big the issue is and how basic we have to go, because they are, and the reason for that is that they're not competent at a lot of things they think they're competent at. Like they just use words wrong and get basic math wrong and stuff like that. That's almost everyone. So to find common ground, you have to go to like stuff that they're actually reliably competent at. And they think that they're like better at a lot of stuff than they are. Then they want to use that as common ground, but you don't actually have common ground there because I'm doing it differently than them. That's my interpretation of what happened. So it's very threatening to them to find out how bad at stuff they are, but you can't properly go all the way back to common ground without some sort of admission about how bad at stuff they are, because common ground is it has to be stuff you're both good at. So it has to exclude everything that they're bad at. Okay, so Gigahurt agreed with that thing. Where is it? Here it is. I agree. Other people can intensify. Yes, it can be even worse with third parties present. Well, I guess I'll add that. I agree. And third parties can amplify the problem. Or like, maybe a different way to put it is just the more people, the more problem it can be. Is that a fair paraphrase? Others present. Yeah. I'm gonna do it. Okay. I agree. And more people can make the problem worse. Aha. My major claim is fair. Slightly out of sync on our perception of social dynamics and how much they subtract. Okay. Oh yeah, this. Okay, so where's that objectivity part? Okay, it's over here. It's this branch. Okay. Yeah, so my short answer is that there's two separate issues. So there's issue number one that is a skill issue. Like, I agree that's totally a thing. Like, the thing he's talking about is a real problem, and there's a skill you can learn, and it helps. But I think there's like a separate issue, a second issue, that the skill doesn't deal with. And that's what I was trying to actually talk about. Yeah, Popperian philosophy has stuff about this as well. For example, a well-known Popper phrase is, let ideas die in your place. I think it's stead in the quote, let ideas die in your stead. Yeah, so this is a like, you can start here, but at some point you reach conclusions. They're still tentative and you can detach from them, but they're also meaningful. Like you can spend, you can reach a conclusion and then 20 years later you still have that conclusion and you've done a lot of work that builds on it. So if it's wrong, you've built on an error a lot. So that's meaningful. Like it's not fundamentally irrational. Mistakes happen, but it looks bad from a social status perspective. The social status is not forgiving of building your career on a mistake and all your work being worthless. I think that identity is important and it's not an inherently bad thing. There's certainly bad ways to do it where you're overly attached to your ideas or something. But you can't just be like infinitely neutral and never take sides either, or you won't do anything. Like, you have to make some bets on some ideas over others. You have to choose some values to pursue in your life, some projects, some interests, etc. And then when you make those choices, yes, they're changeable. And like, don't get hung up on them because of the sunk cost problem. But they do partly define who you are. And it's important when you're wrong about a major bet that you invest a lot in, and it makes sense that that's a social status threat. Like, you can find a way to look at it rationally and be okay with it if it was, a reasonable bet given the available information and so on. But I think social status just doesn't evaluate things in an adequately rational way. So even if you're okay with it, you can still find that your social status is threatened because an idea that is associated with you for reasonable reasons turns out to be wrong. There are other issues, like if you have a debate with someone, who wins the debate provides evidence about who knew more, who would like research the topic better, etc. Or who had better like background knowledge and other sources to draw on to help them see the topic and analyze the topic in a better way. And yeah, we don't have to be overly attached to our ideas, and we can learn from each other. But the social world cares like who was better, who taught who more, etc. And if it's a one-time exception, it's okay. But if there's like patterns where you're consistently being the person who's like wrong and learning from the other guy, the social hierarchy is not going to be nice about that. Um, I think just social rules are not rational. They're not designed and defined to make rationality and learning and progress work well. And I also think objectively, there's not that much difference between I was wrong, my idea was wrong, this idea that I've held for a while was wrong, this idea that I've put a lot of research into was wrong, this idea that I made several life decisions based on turned out to be wrong. Those are all pretty similar. I don't think those things are ruinous to truth seeking. Like, you can deal with them, and yes, it does take skill to deal with them well. But I think they have like some meaning. It's like part of the situation. It's not just like I don't think just trying to stay neutral can solve that problem and make all those things go away. Rushing to conclusions is common for a lot of reasons. One of them is that people don't like to have open problems. They often want to just have some sort of answer and close up the topic, and instead of living with an ongoing sort of tension where they have to deal with uncertainty and unknowns on an ongoing basis. Yeah, I don't think I personally have problems with this stuff. But I think the social dynamics of it make it very hard for people who are more invested in the social hierarchy than I am. And also there are rationality skills involved that plenty of people have trouble with. But I think even people who study rationality and are okay at that part, they're usually too invested in the social hierarchy, so they still have significant trouble with this stuff. Yeah, I think having independent self-esteem is important. Ayn Rand writes about that as well. Yeah. So to deal with this problem, you need two things. You need a rationality skill to look at things objectively, like um, we have a table and we put the ideas on index cards and then we just toss them all on the table and then we throw criticisms at them and like no one, you don't have to like take sides. You can argue for all the different sides. That kind of thing. And then some people get decent at that. Most don't really, but some do. That's not like such a huge problem. It's just like a medium problem. But then even when people get decent at that, I think concern for status uh, makes it a huge problem in a lot of cases anyways. So you can see this like some people are decent at that stuff when talking to a couple friends in private who they trust, because then there's a lot less of a status threat. And then the same people in public will act quite differently. So if you see like public-private behavior differences, then that shows the issue is more about the status issues than the rationality skill. I think Ayn Rand would disagree about emotional attachment being bad, like, but I'm reasonably okay with it. I'm pretty calm in general. I think emotions are overrated, and you can value things and care about things, um, and live in reality and deal with the world instead of being detached from the whole world without being highly emotional about it. But I don't think emotions are people's main problems. Like, I think emotions are generally a downstream consequence of an error rather than the cause of the error. Like, there's something that triggers the emotion in the first place. Like, I think emotions are basically very fast responses to people's interpretations of a situation or an event or something like that. So when they have negative emotions about something, it's because they think something bad's going on. They see it negatively in some way. Their analysis, um, they did some sort of analysis, they reached some sort of negative conclusion, then they got emotional. And that often prevents further analysis. So it's like their initial analysis sees a problem, then they get emotional, then the emotions get in the way of doing more analysis and figuring it out better. So if they get the initial analysis wrong, then the emotions get in the way of correcting it. But I think like initially the first thing that happens is not a negative emotion. It's some sort of interpretation of the situation. Some reason you think it's rationally, objectively bad for you, or um, will hurt you in terms of social standing. like other people will think it's bad for you even though it's not, is also a threat. Anyway, so you have some sort of understanding of what's going on, which is negative, and it's very quick. And then you feel bad, and then it gets in the way of further analysis. But I think basically emotions follow our opinions instead of dictating them. Because a lot of people view emotions as like causeless or like self-causing or something. Like the emotion is just sort of this thing that has power over you. Whereas I think people create their own emotions according to some sort of ideas they have. Emotions can cause positive feedbacks and amplify problems though. Because like something can look a little bad to you, and then you feel a little bad, and then the fact that you're feeling bad seems bad to you. So you like uh it makes the situation seem worse to you because you're feeling bad, which you take as like additional evidence. Then the situation seems worse, so then you feel worse. And now you're feeling worse, which you take as evidence. So then the situation seems even worse, and then you feel even worse. I think feedback loops like that are a thing that happens and causes trouble. And that's one of the reasons the emotional response sometimes doesn't seem to correspond very well to the situation. Another reason that emotional responses don't seem to correspond well to the situation is past history. Like if people have had ongoing problems with someone, they'll often like majorly escalate or just jump ahead at initial problems because um they've had so many problem solving failures in the past. So it seems sort of hopeless to them, and they just jump to sort of where they're at with that person in general about how bad things are. But I think that that is an evaluation. It's something like I have a problem with this person, like my parent, and I'm like, 6 or something. Like this is common with kids and parents. Like yeah, kid parent conflict. Kid knows that he's tried lots of things without getting his problem solved very well or getting much help. So he thinks anything he does below a certain level of escalation isn't going to get him anywhere due to past experience. So he immediately does a massive escalation to what he thinks is the minimum that ever helps at all. And so I think that that sort of massive emotional reaction and escalation can be related to an actual judgment about the situation. What do I want to quote? Oh, Do I want to add stuff directly to the tree? Or do I want to write a response in paragraphs and then translate that into the tree? Maybe that would be better. Okay, Markdown editor. Okay, that I think explains what I was trying to say decently. Yeah, I think there's room for small patches on the social world. Like, if a bunch of business people want a certain specific thing to change its social status, that might be achievable with enough work and enable business to work better. But I don't think this kind of thing will lead to like wholesale or principled reform of social dynamics. I don't think it'll fix like the underlying brokenness. I think it's more like just adding a special case rather than making social dynamics actually make sense. Okay, I think I want to say something about this. Okay, where was this in the tree? I'll do the business thing. Okay, so this one will be black. I'll put this one in my document. All right. I want something about neutrality. Okay, that summarized what I was saying pretty briefly, I think. Okay, so I want to do the pretend everything is fine part. This stuff's covered. Okay, where's my major point? So fair point. There, fair point. I don't really need that, whatever. Okay, so I addressed this part. I addressed this part. So I have the end, which I haven't read yet. And I need to do this. I talked about earlier, but I'm going to write something. And I need to put this into my tree. I have the baling part somewhere. Let's search bale. That should work. Okay, here we go. We found the right part. Okay, I'll just add that to the tree. That should work. Pretend everything is fine. Okay, I haven't been very careful with including all the italics. I think there might actually be some quotes with missing italics. But whatever. Doesn't seem like that big a deal. Okay, so that gets the part that gigahurt is responding to. Oh wait, my video is lagging or something? YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Oh. OBS dropped 773 frames, but it's not dropping any right now. I think it was just a temporary problem. There's a decent number of frames dropped. Like, am I streaming at 30 or 60 FPS? Let's find out. Stream, output, video, 30. Okay, so at 30 FPS, that is like 300 is 10 seconds. So like 25 seconds worth of dropped frames. Yeah, that's actually kind of a lot. However, it stopped. So, oh well. Probably not a big enough deal to like re-upload my local recording. Also, I don't know if dropped frames, it might be dropping the frames in the local recording as well. I'm not sure. Depends if they're getting dropped because of like network issues or CPU issues. Okay, so gigahertz response to me. It's hard to verify in particular cases. That's the main response. I want to put that in my tree. I'll just put it at the bottom. I think he quoted that whole part, so I'll just put it after. Oh, this is a quote. Okay, yeah, so there's a variety of ways you can get evidence. Well, I guess I'll write something. All right. I need a double quote on this one. This quote doesn't work out of context. Let's see. Right, take that. Okay. At the bottom, I want to say, I want to give a tree link. Okay. Here is my tree so far. Comments, corrections on the nodes already in it. I don't really want to say comments. I want corrections. Like if if he has a problem with some of the nodes, that is like the first thing to deal with, I think. Represented. Link. I have to decide how to share it too. They don't do SVG upload or exports in my node. So I can do PNG, PDF, both. And I can also do this website, which is terrible on mobile. And it lets you download the actual MyNode file. So if someone actually has the MyNode app, it works. So it's actually good on iOS because they can open it in the MyNode app. But anyways, I think that this web page, like, probably bad, probably not going to work. I think it's okay for smaller trees if someone's on a desktop computer. But I probably shouldn't try to use this export. Yeah, it's being laggy when I just try to zoom in enough to read anything. Wait, did it just stop zooming in? Oh, God. Yeah, it's being really laggy. Alright, fuck this thing. They stopped supporting that feature, by the way. They just gave up on it and they decided they're going to make something else or something eventually. So you literally can't even do that export if you download MindNode today. You have to be grandfathered in by having gotten the app when it was still an active feature, and then they just left it there. So I can use it, but new people can't. And it doesn't support tags, for example. Yeah, it doesn't support new features such as tags, because tags came out after they stopped developing their website thing. I was on this tab. This is okay. So here, this is what I need to respond to. Oh no, it was this. I was writing my response. Okay. I talked about this in my video. Some ways. Oh, YouTube's saying the error again, but my dropped frames has not gone up. And the bandwidth looks fine. The bandwidth is green. Dropped frames is still 773, no change. And YouTube is saying not enough video to maintain smooth streaming. What the hell? But it's giving all the video. Open widget? Okay, I will open a widget. They suggest that I lower the bitrate to 4500. But I have plenty of bandwidth because I have like 40,000. And I'm streaming at 8.5. I don't know. If you see problems in the video, like noticeable problems, let me know with a timestamp, I guess. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna just assume it's probably okay. And just ignore it. Okay, did I want to add anything else here? This is a really common one. The bitter stuff, like, people bring things back up that they were upset about because it's still on their mind. That's one of the more common ways that you get evidence. There's multiple ways they do it. Bitter remarks and like passive aggressive remarks about it are one of the common ways. But sometimes they just start arguing about it out of the blue, and you thought it was like had been left behind a while ago, and they just start talking about it a bunch, and they're like, oh, you seem to care about that a lot, so you get evidence. Oh, an example that comes up a lot is if I point out that someone lied about something, regardless of my like evidence and argument quality, and regardless of their ability to like deny it or just how blatantly they got caught, people quite reliably get upset. And they often hide it and pretend that they're okay, and they try to debate whether it was a lie or not or whatever. Like they try to be rational, but then like a bit later they just start accusing me of lying or something because they want to get me back. Or or later or like later there's something that seems like a bit like hard feelings, and I'll say, well, I'm trying to be, rational and productive. I'm not trying to attack you. And then they'll say, but you accuse me of lying. I'll be like, oh, you didn't object to that at the time. I thought when people are dishonest is a very important thing, that if we're trying to be rational, that's the kind of thing we want to like catch and fix. I think it's like a major problem to deal with. But people are often, very commonly, one, offended by that, and two, don't say so until later, and then they bring it up later. It happens all the time to me with specifically lying. Oh, I'm gonna link my essay on lying. Lying. Okay. Okay, so I have this much left. Oh, well, I need to put stuff in the tree as well. Okay, that's good enough. More detail could be added there if it becomes necessary. Okay, so then the main stuff was over here. Let's Okay, I think I tagged everything. Um, okay, this stuff I put into the tree. This stuff I put in. I put the patch thing in. I didn't put the extra sensitive in. I think that's okay. Okay. Save. Yeah, YouTube just stopped sending me email notifications for new videos. Apparently they did that to Max too. Okay. What did I say here? Oh, people focus on social dynamics. They care more about social status than truth. They don't want to change their goals because social status is their goal. Okay. Okay, two things. Yes. Social dynamics is part of the world, just like a volcano, a tsunami, um, sub-zero temperatures. It's a hazard you have to deal with. And the thing about social dynamics is that the straightforward strategies for dealing with it, as in trying to get good at it and win the game, um, cause people to become dishonest and irrational, and it like corrupts them from within and destroys them. That's my basic opinion. So you need to find other strategies, like what can you do from the outside instead of playing the game. I think playing the game is just really dangerous. You can play it like a little and maybe survive, but I think if you play the game a lot, then like no one survives. Keep reading. Let's see. Right, so I think you can do a little of that, but I think, and it will help some. But if you want to optimize it more and you keep trying to get it more and more optimized, then I think it will destroy you. So I think that you can compromise with it a bit and survive, but if you want really good outcomes, you need like severe workarounds, like majorly circumventing the system in some way, rather than working within the system. Which is why I look for things like, how can you design written rules that override social dynamics? Like, it's like how the scientific method gives people a lot of structure to their activities. So if you follow the method and the things scientists are supposed to do, it leaves you a lot less wiggle room to act badly according to bias or social climbing or whatever. And you can do that with discussion as well, so that people have a lot less like freedom to play favorites or be biased or take social actions. Like if there are a bunch of written rules that limit actions, then those can keep people honest and non-social. And then wherever there's like a gap, people are going to be really social. Or something else bad. I think it has to be acknowledged as a major problem, and you have to have explicit norms for dealing with it. Like, I think if you just say, like, try your best and we'll write some articles about it, it's going to be prevalent at your forum. You need, like, a lot more than that before much changes. Like, even at my own forum, which has taken a lot more measures than Less Wrong has, I think it's still reasonably prevalent. I don't have a very high opinion of Less Wrong. Um, there's certainly a lot worse out there, but like for example, the community is inductivist, and there's no real mechanisms to debate that. No one will take responsibility for outlining their position. No one will represent Less Wrong. I wrote an article about this. Let's see. Less Wrong. There it is. Yeah, this I wrote this like 3 or 4 years ago. Let's see. Yeah, okay, almost 3 years ago. At my previous visit to Less Wrong. Um, yeah, there's no one who's like responsible for addressing criticisms and questions. You just sort of get these chaotic ad hoc responses from different people who disagree with each other. There's no way to like engage with the Less Wrong position on induction or any sort of like prominent school of thought and actually resolve anything because like no one actually answers all the issues or there's no like well-defined position coming from anyone in particular. All you can do is like argue with random individuals. And one of the problems with that is if you argue with random individuals and you change their mind, basically you don't change anyone else's mind. Like you can convince people one by one. Um but it's not designed for Less Wrong to like lose a debate and then get mass converted and like lots of people change their mind at once on something. Not like automatically, like they'd have to review it, but like you can imagine a system where certain ideas can be challenged and can lose, and then like most of the forum goers will take notice of that and be like, oh, and like they'll see the discussion tree, and if they can't add any nodes, then they'll change their mind. Whereas like Less Wrong has nothing remotely like that. Anyways, I'll link this somewhere around here. I don't know if I'm quoting this whole thing, but what did I say about passive aggressive types? Was it in a video maybe? No, this is before my videos, right? Yeah, this is before my videos. Okay, what did I say about passive? Let's try aggressive? I don't know. It could be in this link. No passive. I know I've said stuff about passive aggressive, I just don't know where it is and what specific thing he's referring to. Oh, maybe it's this. So he called this passive aggressive, like his words. So he might be talking about this stuff. Type 1 and type 2 errors. I don't know what that means offhand. Okay, before I know exactly what it is, my general comments are optimize for dealing with the best people. Really high value things, or like greatness is like uncommon or rare. And even some people are mixed with like a high variance. So people with high variance can have some like really valuable ideas. Whereas someone who's like, 80th percentile with zero variance, they never have the best idea on anything, so there's not much value there. Anyways, yeah, optimize for the best people is my general opinion. You don't want to act in a way where the best people won't like you, or something will go wrong with them. Type 1, rejection of true null hypothesis. Type 2 is non-rejection of a false null hypothesis, also known as false negative. Oh, false positive, false negative. Aha. Okay, so I think false negatives on really great people are the worst. So avoid those first. False positives. False positives aren't so dangerous in conversation because you're always getting more feedback. If you have a false positive where you're like, okay, this person's great, I know the answer, and then you stop evaluating them, that's really dangerous. But if you have a false positive where you think, okay, this person looks good, and then you keep talking to them and you find out they're bad, like 5 messages later, that's not a big deal. Like you invest extra energy in 5 messages because they looked promising. And like writing high quality messages, even to dumb people, is not really a bad thing to do sometimes. You still get some value out of that. So yeah, as long as you don't shut your mind and stop evaluating people, I think false positives are often very temporary. Whereas false negatives are permanent. Basically. Yeah. See, that's one of the things that like my paths forward stuff tries to deal with, is there should be mechanisms, whereas if you false negative someone, they can correct it, like it can actually get fixed. But most people don't really have mechanisms for that. Like they'll false negative you, and then there's just no way to fix it, and that sucks. So like I have explicit policies to deal with that. Like my debate policy. This is a false negative policy. If I false negative someone, they can invoke my debate policy. I'm making public, transparent promises about what I'll do in certain conditions, and they keep me honest because, like, it's a public commitment. It's not very hard to. It's all stuff that's like pretty easy to objectively evaluate. And I think I have the kind of audience that would hold me accountable or would notice if I went against my policies. Anyway, so yeah, like this is an anti-false negative policy. Sometimes people look dumb to me and I stop talking to them, but if they like want to override that, I have an option for them. So I'm gonna need this link as well. Okay, so I've got an answer to this. Okay, I don't think I need to quote all this. I cut a lot, so I'm gonna ellipsis that. I think I'm gonna cut that as well. Okay. Okay, so type 1 is false. Which is which? Type 1 is false positive. Okay. I like the words better. Because type 1 and type 2 is like too hard to remember. It doesn't give you any hints about what it means. And false positive and false negative they're short enough. So I'd rather use those. And it's saying a false positive is an error of commission, a false negative is an error of omission. So here you're doing something bad, like talking to someone who sucks, and here you're missing out on an opportunity. Yeah, that makes reasonable sense. Okay, so where does this go in my tree? Huh. Okay, let's try it. Wait, this is a feed of the videos on my own channel. That's actually a useful. I'll totally leave this. Why is it called Curie 1? Edit. No. Edit name? There we go. Okay, Curie YouTube. Okay, so on the one hand I like this, on the other hand it doesn't have the stuff I need. Wait, why are there 17 comments here? Wait, there's duplicates. Somehow it just made duplicates. These are like obvious duplicates. There is I don't know. This isn't convincing me. I know people who think Debian is good, who are, you know, competent and stuff, and I've used Debian and it hasn't screwed me over so far. When is this from? This is recent. Oh, what's the Mark Red hotkey? Article. Command Shift U. Oh, unread is different. Huh. It's not a toggle. That's kind of lame, actually. Okay, Command Shift Option U. That's awkward to press. Is this not a duplicate? Alright, Command Shift Option U. Mark these as red. Okay, so there's 2 comments there for me to read, and then we go here and oh, that's not comments, that's posts. Okay, yeah, I'm caught up on this stuff. Anyway, what was he telling me to do? There's a button at the bottom for RSS. Oh, there it is. Export subscription. Allow. Okay, what on earth? Subscription manager.xml. Oh, it's an XML file with all the different subscriptions. And it has no idea which ones are the ones that I actually had active. Oh, so I can individually add them. Oh, he's preemptively answering the thing I was in the middle of typing, I think. I don't know how much stream delay there is. Okay, yeah. That doesn't sound that useful. I like having a feed of my own channel though. I've been using the bell. It's good enough for now. Plus I've got that Chrome extension. But yeah, I'm just clicking the bell like multiple times per day to find my new stuff. It's annoying though because I like to leave unread emails to save videos for later. And there's no good way to save stuff for later in the bell. Although YouTube has a watch later feature. Maybe I should learn how to use that. There's some way to add stuff to a queue on YouTube and they'll keep track of it for you. I just never used it. Anyway. I was gonna put this into my tree. Okay, so this is like sort of broad point somewhere. Should I just put it under this? Let me look at the post again. He had it under this. Okay. Oh, two final point elaborations. So it's not a direct reply. Okay, I'll just put it here. Gigahertz. I don't need this whole thing. Okay. I'll clarify more. Discussing with bad people or false negative. Missing out on good discussion. Yeah, there we go. False positives aren't that bad if you keep thinking and evaluating. You got more chances to correct them every time you interact. False negatives are more permanent. A lot of people are just sort of very hostile to outliers because the majority of outliers are negative. But, yeah, I think having stuff that deals with positive outliers well is really important. Let me find a David Deutsch quote. There you go. Okay, so Sarah posted all these quotes of insults people say, including, in particular, a bunch that contradict each other or contradict reality. Like, for example, they were called socialists when they are in fact in favor of capitalism. Very much not socialists. Right, so it has been called a collectivist, right-wing, PC, fascist, randroid, anarchist. And no, they didn't mean anarcho-capitalist. Also subjectivist, relativist, moralistic, amoral, irrational, a cold rationalist, etc. Anyway, this is context. People say a lot of mean things. So David Deutsch responded, what provokes this hatred and vilification and blind misunderstanding? I think it's this. Someone who is far in advance of most people about an important moral issue is likely not to be understood at first, and in the meantime, to be hated and vilified just as much as someone who is egregiously wrong. How could it be otherwise? The way it could be otherwise is if people were nicer to outliers and more tolerant. This is from 2001. Yeah, this is in fact like days after I joined the discussion forum. I joined in like November or December 2001. Did I use the word outlier in here? No. Okay, let's use that. Great people, positive outliers. Yeah, so I think another way to put it is you want to have outlier-friendly policies. Rejecting, if you reject all outliers, you get rid of the negative outliers and the positive outliers. And the negative outliers are way more numerous. There's way more ways to be wrong than right. But I still think it's not even close to worth it. There's also value in variance, variety, diversity, etc. Like the more you only look at a narrow swath of the bell curve, the more you're losing diversity. So there's a downside there as well. But the larger problem is that so much value and progress can come from positive outliers. Also, sometimes the same person is a positive and negative outlier. Because like there's two ways to be positive to become a positive outlier. One, you can increase your mean. The other is you can increase your standard deviation. You can increase your variance. There's some people who have some really valuable ideas and also a bunch of terrible ideas. And that's still really valuable because only the best few ideas on each topic actually count. So like being consistently not the best, like isn't very useful because we can just take the best ideas and not worry about like the eighth best. So if someone manages to have more variance to contribute any ideas at all that actually are the best in their field or make some sort of significant contribution, that's really valuable. Whereas someone else can have a much higher mean but much lower variance and never contribute anything that really matters. But if you can find someone who's not just high variance, but high mean, or possibly like a bit of both, that's, I think, better. Anyways, all right, this part. Yes. There's definitely like, this can be misleading. There's problems with saying this, but there's also like, it's partly saying something that's important. The real thing is more complicated. I'll just say it like this is an approximation. The issue is more complicated. It relates to the beginning of Infinity, David's book, and its themes. The beginning of Infinity, one of the main meanings is the beginning of infinite progress, infinite learning, which can also be seen as unbounded learning. Whereas an irrationality or a dishonesty or an error that you will not error correct is a boundary. It prevents you from the beginning of Infinity because you're putting a bound, so you don't have unbounded progress because there's a bound in the way. So I think any kind of limit that can flip the switch from unbounded progress to bounded progress, and it's a big deal to flip that switch. Okay, I'll say that. This is pretty incomplete, so I added a little note to it. Yeah, even if I could import all the channels into my RSS reader, then I'd have many feeds that were separate, which isn't really what I want. Like I subscribe to a lot of low volume channels. So having like many different feeds is annoying. Maybe there's like a grouping feature or something. Search for folders. I don't know. I don't use this a lot. Anyway, I'm managing and maybe YouTube will fix their emails soon. Okay, yeah, so I think this is a major area, but I've written like enough stuff. So I'm going to end soon. I'm at 2 hours. I need to put this in the tree, and I still have like half a paragraph left. This. Some comments on LW. Oh, what am I doing? Okay. Whatever. He can click links from here if he wants. Um. Okay, good enough. Oh yeah, what I wanted to say. So this is what happened 3 years ago. Well, it's part of it. I'll just give a bit of history about my less wrong participation. 3 years ago, I got banned from the Slack for posting chat logs to my forum, with no warning and no posted rules saying not to do that. They told me it was a private Slack, I should have known better. I said, um, there's a public web page that says, send an email to this address to join, and then you'll just get approved. There's no screening whatsoever, as far as I know. They just have a bunch of people, and I think just anyone can join under a fake name and no one cares. But I don't think it's private. There was no indication to me that it was actually private. And on top of that, they had specific channels that were like more private. Like there was an honor system to keep them private, and people would talk about personal stuff. And I was only posting chat logs of my own discussions where I was like a major participant. And I don't think I posted stuff that was like a significant privacy problem. And like the thing they objected to was basically, like, yeah, having an archive of their arguments and like what they said being public about topics like induction. Anyway, so yeah, I got banned with no warning, and then meanwhile on the website, this was still Less Wrong 1.0. Um, yeah, I got downvoted a fair amount, and some moderators basically told me you're annoying, post only once a week or some other rate limit. And then I followed the rate limit, and then they got back to me again and said you're still annoying, like post even less without specifics or something. Like it really seemed like it was going downhill, and I gave up and left. And that was around the time they banned me from the Slack anyways, like a little after. It wasn't that productive anyways. The reason I went back that time was because a moderator, who is also the Slack owner, found my Paths Forward article and liked it a lot. However, when we had a debate later, he totally did not like Paths Forward when I turned it on him and said he should be offering Paths Forward in case he's wrong, and he just wanted to shut down discussion. So, I don't know, he liked the concept, but he didn't like actually being asked to do it. That guy was also into NVC, nonviolent communication, but again, he did not like being asked to do it, and his own messages were violating it a lot. Anyways, the point of that was I went back specifically because I was invited, not because I had any major motivation to go back of my own. So, it wasn't a big deal for me to leave because I didn't particularly care anyways. They were like, you should come here, we love your Paths Forward. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll talk to you. And then people were hostile, and I was like, okay, whatever. The previous time though, well, and then there's this time. This time I went back because I was never actually banned from the website. Less Wrong 2.0 has different moderators, different team. I don't know how it works. I don't know how much overlap there is, but so far no one has harassed me as far as moderators go. And the reason I went back this time is I was trying to write stuff and I wanted to talk to opponents and I thought it would be useful. That was the main motivation. And then on top of that, I started reading Rationality A to Z. I've read like 80% of it recently. I'll finish it up soon and start. I have bookmarks on things I want to comment on, so I'll be writing a bunch of posts about that. Anyways, as much as I dislike certain parts of it, I do think there's some quite good parts. I think Yudkowsky has a mean that is way above average and quite a bit of variance as well. So some ideas are pretty bad, but some other ones are quite good. So I find ideas that are actually valuable in it. So I appreciate that. Anyways, the first time I went to Less Wrong though was around 9 years ago. I'd known about them for a while, like before it was Less Wrong when it was Overcoming Bias. But anyways, I went and tried to debate Popper stuff with them, and that is why my account has negative hundreds of karma. And okay, see this draft, which is 9 years old? This is not a draft. This is a moderator blocked it, and then the conversion to 2.0 somehow turned it into a draft. Anyways, you click on it, and then you search for Elliot. You just have to spell his name correctly. Here we go. Post removed from main and discussion on grounds that I've never seen anything voted down that far before. Page will still be accessible to those who know the address. So first of all, shortly after this, the page was no longer accessible to anyone. It was deleted by a moderator. And then when I got invited back 3 years ago, the moderator undeleted this page, and then when I left again, someone deleted it again for the second time. But much more importantly than that, he was explicitly suppressing it on the basis that one, it was unpopular, and two, that it was an outlier. And I think those are terrible, terrible reasons to suppress discussion and to step in as a moderator. Basically, he's saying our karma system enforces social norms, but you ignored social norms and our karma system, So we just back up. If downvotes don't shut you up, we just back it up with moderator action as needed to fill in the gaps. Like, so the karma system looks like it's not like hard rules. Like, it's just optional information. You don't really have to follow it or care about downvotes, right? It looks like a soft system. But if you don't respect it, they just follow up with moderator action, or at least that is Yudkowsky's personally his attitude. Is if you're not listening to people's social disapproval as expressed by downvotes and arguing with you and so on, and you keep persisting in disagreeing with them and trying to debate, and they just keep downvoting you, then well, the karma system isn't doing enough to get you to leave, and the social disapproval is not doing enough to get you to leave, so we'll just throw in actual moderator actions with no warning and no attempt to make it like rules based. Just arbitrarily, this is a special case, so I will now start taking moderator action. And yeah, outlier suppression, unpopular idea suppression, it's terrible. I think it's terrible. Anyways, this is why I left the first time I came here. Tried to debate Popper with them and found that it was not a rational forum. There were a lot of things that went wrong, but this is straight from their leader. So I thought this message was particularly sad, and this is the reason that I didn't read Rationality A to Z previously, because I have a quite negative opinion of Yudkowsky in some ways. And there are other issues too. Like, I think they're completely wrong about AI alignment and a lot of the stuff about how they think about AIs. And Yudkowsky has written stuff about Popper, which is like trash quality. Like, he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about when he attacks Popper. And just, it's very standard misrepresentations that you see in a lot of secondary sources. And he's not correctable about that either. Prior to ever coming to Less Wrong, I had sent him an email about Popper specifically, correcting him on something he wrote in an article, and he just ignored me. Anyway, so that's a little bit of context. I've just left this in my drafts folder because I don't really want to draw attention to it on the site. I don't even know what will happen if I publish it. Like, it might update the date or something. I don't want it to like I don't want to make it part of discussion, but I would like it to be part of the public archive, so that's awkward. Oh, another thing about Less Wrong 1.0 is you needed a certain amount of karma in order to make posts. Like 20 or something. Like, it was low, but it was positive. So if you didn't have that much karma, you could only write comments. So one of the things that happened to me is when people are downvoting me into the massively negative numbers, it disabled my ability to write posts. So it was very hard to have discussions because I could only comment, not post. So that was bad. That's another way they were suppressing discussion. That seems to be gone. See, when I came back 3 years ago, the friendly moderator actually gave me like plus 700 karma or whatever to set my karma positive so that I could participate. And then I think when Less Wrong 2.0 got converted, it just looked at all my old posts and added up the karma like a fresh count or something. That's my guess. And that's why it's like highly negative again. Or possibly just after the moderator stopped being friendly towards me, he just set my karma back. I don't know. Anyways, but it doesn't matter anymore. You can write posts with negative karma. There's no important effect. So that's nice. That's the way the site improved. On a related note, I think that downvotes probably should not exist, or should be changed so that they have no impact on karma or post visibility. One of those. Either get rid of them entirely, or just make only upvotes affect karma, downvotes don't, and only upvotes affect visibility, downvotes don't. the point of keeping downvotes when they have no effect would be that you could see the number. Like you could see this got a bunch of downvotes. It would just be information, but it wouldn't have any. It wouldn't do anything. It'd just be like a tag if people wanted to put it on. The reason I thought it might be worth keeping is because on Twitter, people look at ratios to try to see how popular posts are. So like this one has 73 comments to 84 retweets. That is a poor ratio. That's because there are no downvotes on Twitter, comments can be a proxy for how much negativity there is, because comments are the only way to say this is retarded. So when popular posts will have way more likes and retweets compared to comments, and unpopular posts will have a lot of comments compared to likes and retweets. So this is a poor ratio indicating an unpopular tweet. Anyways, so I think it's useful information for people to be able to say I don't like this. So I think keeping it as a thing that's visible so people can know it's disliked is reasonable. I just think it shouldn't lower people's karma or make posts like harder to find. I think upvoting the stuff you like is adequate for those purposes. See, here's a more popular tweet. It has 411 comments, but it has 3.3 thousand retweets and 10,000 likes. So the ratio is significantly better. Like the other one was close to 1-to-1, whereas this is like eight retweets per comment ish, and like 25 likes per comment, whereas the other one was like 3 likes per comment or something. Yeah, 3-ish. Right, so yeah, this is what a popular post looks like, and that was an unpopular one. The ratio thing's interesting, I think. Anyway, that was very tangential. But yeah, I think in general, if you violate social norms, they start with soft pressure to like not violate the norms or whatever. But if you just keep violating them, they just escalate. They're not actually optional. Like I think that's what Yudkowsky's moderator action 9 years ago was really saying. I think that's typical, and I think his fan base is broadly not better than he is about that or much of anything else. Um, okay, did I need to write anything else? I think I finished enough. Yeah, it's good enough. Just yeah, if you want more about something, just re-bring it up. Ask for more. I will just attempt to put the last things into the tree and then export the tree and post my comment and post my video link. Yeah, okay. Um, so I wrote that's older. I wrote the yes. I wrote the yes. I wrote this. Okay, this I'm gonna put in the tree. Um, I'll do this one first though, it comes first. Okay. I seem to have extra words here. I can cut a bit. To elaborate though, what I mean by this is that oh yeah, it's kind of connected. Maybe I should paraphrase. Alright, let's see. What is he talking about? Okay. Social dynamics are a part of reality. Rational action takes them into account. That's like the first one. Uh, we can work around social dynamics. And minimize harm. Okay, paraphrased. Alright, here we go. I can quote that. I'll just throw that quote in. Alright, this I'm just going to leave out. If he responds to it, it can get added later. And then alright, this is a little awkward about where to put it in the tree. He says earlier question. Is less wrong in the tree right now? Search for less. Oops. Okay. Undo create new node. Oh, well, I'm zoomed out. God. What the hell? Where'd they go? They just glitched the fuck out. Alright, undo. Zoom in a bit more. Fuck it, I'm just putting them up. No, I don't want to do that. Whatever. Over here. If I put them up, then the document will just... Like, this won't be near the top of the document, which is bad. I want the main tree to be in the top left. So these just need to go over there. Okay, so I want to search for less wrong. No results. Search for LW. Always. Only one result. Okay. Oh, by the way, in terms of moderators screwing with me on Less Wrong, I've been treated worse than that at a lot of other forums. So just to put it in context, I'm not saying it compares poorly to most other places. I don't think it does. I've been banned from a lot of forums. I've got experience with moderators and stuff. Anyways, I wanted to put this thing somewhere. Okay. How could we do better than Less Wrong in terms of an online community? By the way, in terms of articles, I agree. There's some decent stuff there, and the comments are better than a lot of places too. But I think they're part of why the articles are kind of good is that blogging has died off a bit in a lot of places. Like I still run a blog, which I started in like 2002 or 3. Um, and there are other like smart people who have blogs, and I think blogs are a good format. Like there's modern clickbait ones which are stupid, but yeah, Less Wrong is a blogging platform, and I think that's a good thing. And it's a rationality community, so like it draws a different crowd than Blogspot or whatever. So it gets a lot of the right kind of blogs in one place. So yeah, there's something nice about that. I don't I broadly do not trust third-party sites and mirror everything important I do to websites I control, by the way. Even if I didn't have a history of having content censored at Less Wrong, I'd still be doing that. Partly because I have a history of having content censored or deleted or whatever, like at a variety of places, it's just not that rare. And I've still gotten caught off guard by it and like lost content even fairly recently. Like I've had some discussions on Discord and then I got banned by surprise. Um, sometimes like I'm talking to one guy and then the moderator shows up, doesn't talk at all, and bans me with no warning. Um, some Discords are like really not very rational communities. And anyways, when you ban people on Discord, the default option is to delete the last 24 hours of their messages. You can switch it off, but that's the default. So I've had moderators do that, I think sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally, um, before I had used a log exporter to get a copy of the discussion, so rip. There's other stuff that's just like ridiculous. Like I was on an objectivist forum on Facebook, and then the guy running it gave ownership to a new guy. The new guy was like, I don't really like discussion forums. I'm going to make this private and archive only, but you're not allowed to continue the discussion you're in the middle of. And they're no longer public archives, even though it was a public discussion place. And then I complained about that, and I was like, couldn't you leave it public? So in response, he banned me. So then I couldn't even access the private archives. I'd mirrored most of what I cared about already, though. Anyway, many more stories, but yeah, pretty tangential. Anyways, I just have to put this somewhere. Right. How can we do better than Less Wrong? Where does that go? I'm gonna just put it at the fucking top. Let's go. If you come up with a better place, like I can move it. Let's just do a short link as well, so that if it's like a PNG without clickable links, then people can type it in. And yeah, for my blog links, you can just delete the title. If you just have domain/number, the links still work, so they're easier to type in. I think FI norms are rationally better, but clash more with typical social. Curie. Did I tag everything down here? Looks like it. Okay, I'm gonna turn Giga into blue instead of black. Okay, how do I do that? Tags. Okay, only his stuff is visible. Select all. And blue. And then there we go. Every Giga tagged post now has an aqua outline. What is this? Is this a drawing error? Is my tree too big and the software is glitching? Yeah. Okay, well, it reappeared. Oh, I had arrows that were like close together. They used to be close together, but they got like way split up. Oh well. They're not going through the middle of anything, so. Okay, comments tag still unused. That's fine. Okay, yeah, well, if I forgot anything, let me know. Okay, later.